Yeah, date 21st June, time is this. In the last session, we have seen we have revised the bindings. In the last session, we have revised the data binding. What is property binding? What is event binding? Right? Then we created the custom event. If you see this thing at output, we have used for the event emitters. Okay.
Is it something like when we say export class, then it will be available for the outside?
This will, right?
Yeah, but the this emit is like the same.
No.
Like
This is a
we can
complete
use. No, no.
this.
I mean, it will be used in the another components.
So whatever events are getting generated inside this app range component,
Mm-hmm.
that events are thrown outside. So two classes are there, you can consider like this. There are two classes. Yeah, so this is the one class, TypeScript class A, TypeScript class B. So tell me, here is one function inside this class you have written, and I want to call this function inside this class. I want to call this function, say ABC, inside this class. Definitely you need to create the object of B inside the A,
Right.
right? And then you can call B dot this. But I don't want to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to create this object inside. I don't want to create object of B inside object of A. Then how you will transport data from here to here?
Mm-hmm.
This thing is called as observer design pattern. Design pattern. So this would be having a sender and this would be having a receiver. So sender will send the data and receiver will receive the data. That's what you have implemented this event emitter means. So app component is receiving the events from the range component. How? Because of this event emitter. Because of this what? Event emitter. On the same lines, I would like to cover something new today, a brand new feature of Angular. I would like to cover a brand new feature of Angular, that is signals. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That is nothing but what? Okay, will not. There is a concept of the signal, but I'm not going to cover the signal today. Just a minute. So, okay, let's not worry about the signal right now. You need little bit more understanding for the signal. Otherwise, I could have covered, right? Otherwise, I could have covered the signals over here. We could have done many things with the signals over here also, input and output with the signals. But for that, we just need to understand first what we mean by signal, and that is a little bit later on we will do it. But just You need to remember that for the input and output, we can use something called as signal. What is that? Just forget about it right now. Android latest concept, that is nothing but what? The signal. Fine. Now there is something called as reference variable, template reference variables. Now what do you mean by template reference variable? So let's create a new folder, day 53. Tell me the command, cd desktop, cd web dev angular, cd day 53. Tell me the command for creating new angular project.
New.
Yeah, ng new, ng new, and here we can say template reference variables, ng new, this thing, a plain css, server side rendering, no. It will take little time. What do you mean by the template reference variables? Can you tell me, have you used in your project template reference variables? Docs, template syntax, and this thing, template reference variables. What do you mean by that?
Means we use the string interpolation.
We use what?
String interpolation of HTML.
Okay.
Is this the same?
No, it's a little bit different. So let's remove these things. Spec file, we don't need it right now. Just close it. What I need to do, likewise we do in a DOM, document.getElement by ID. Here we have a div and there is a input type text, placeholder any name, input type button, say OK. Now on the click of OK, on the click of OK, on the click of OK, I need to have this value to be printed. So here we can say h1, and already we have the title. Okay, then here we can say cd template reference npm start. Npm what? Start. So in the last session we discussed what is style binding, what is property binding, what is event binding, attribute binding, two-way binding, custom events, at event emitter. Right? Syntaxes we have seen. Now on the top of that we would be studying this thing. So I want to have a value of this. I want to have a value of this to be assigned to this guy. So here you can have which event? Click event. And here we can say handle click. Handle what? Click. So here we can write handle click, and just we need to change the value of this title from here, but that needs to be a value of this guy. So here I can say hash any variable name, that is okay. And here I can say hash, or here I can say any nm dot value. So this value. So here you can expect the str is of type string and title is equals to str. Okay. Localhost 4200. See here, just refresh it, ABC. If you want to handle, just go to the document first. What is the template reference? Template variable help you use a data from one part of a template in another part of the template, which means that either you can use this hash any nm. Can you see? You have assigned to this input, I have used it over here, which will point to the, this will point to the DOM element. Use the template variables to perform the tasks such as respond to the user input or fine-tune the application forms. A template variable can refer to the following: a DOM element within a template, a directive or a component, a template reference from an ng template or a web component. See here, hash this thing, and here hash phone dot value. So this any nm will actually point to the HTML element, this guy. Actually point to the HTML element over here, right? And that HTML element's value you are passing to the handle click button. If you see handle click function, handle click, you are expecting the str, and this dot title is equals to str. So what is happening here? If you type 1234 and click OK, that would be getting assigned to this guy. Okay.
So I think we did it using like some DOM element related functions also. Right?
Yeah.
Means we can get the value of edit function.
Yes. So
This
here,
is also one of the ways. Yes.
you assign the ID over here. In a DOM, what we have done, we have assigned what? ID, any name. You are doing same thing. But in Angular, we don't do the DOM manipulation. It is the Angular's responsibility to do the DOM manipulation. So internally, Angular is assigning ID only to this guy. Internally from hash any name, this is the Angular strategy to point this element and use that element anywhere in your project. Right? And use that element anywhere in a project. Is it clear what do you mean by this hash any nm? Let's have more practical example. Input type number, and here we can say placeholder num1, num2, div, input type button, say add, subtract, division, and input type multiplication. And here there is a h1, result colon. Let's have one variable now. Here we need to have result is of type number. Why? result is of type number is equals to 0. Now I want to perform the addition of two numbers, and here we can say handle operation. So here btn is of type number, handle operation, and then here we can say num1 is of type number and num2 is of type number. Okay. Now I want you to complete this code, and if I click on the add, it should print the addition of two numbers. If I click on the sub, it should print the subtraction of these two numbers here. So I will push this much code. You need to complete this code. So this is the button, num1, num2, and the addition needs to be printed over here, or whatever mathematical operation would be printed over here. So here we can say template reference, and I'm syncing the project. Can you tell me how do you do this?
We will write code in the TS and we will call this function on the button, call that function, pass some value of the add, for example, for add we will send one number, for subtraction we will send again for similarly, and we can check in the TS file if the button click is add, that is number one. You send it as a one, right, parameter
Where?
in the TS file. First parameter is a number btn.
Yeah. So you need, yeah, you need to see this.
Yeah. So this handle operation function is called for each button click. For each button, and you can send the parameters, three parameters. That is, we can assign the numbers to the operations. Along with, we can use this template reference variable.
Where you will use? Where you will use template reference variable?
First, we need to define in front of both the input numbers, and we can send those in front of the buttons, and then we will receive it and we can calculate those values into the result value.
Okay, got it. So
Update that result.
yes, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the correct understanding.
Yes,
right?
yes. But this is the bad approach. Using the template reference is bad approach.
Okay. Why? Because I thought we are learning this topic, so this is the example for template reference.
Yeah, this is the correct template reference. You will do the DOM manipulation at that point where Angular things are not working, right? Where you cannot solve the problem by means of the Angular. Then and only then you will do the raw DOM manipulation, and this is one of the technique of the raw DOM manipulation. We are going to see the correct way, much correct way later on, but once we learn the directives, you will get to know the more appropriate way of this. Okay. So this is the bad approach. Using this hash nenm in your HTML is not that recommended way. What is the recommended way? We will see. But this is not recommended way. So how to do this thing? We will see. What is the best approach to access this NENM in the app component? You need this guy NENM in an app component. How to do that? We will see. But before that, we need to understand something called as directives. What we need to understand? Why is the error but by the way? Okay. So if you go here, a next topic and very important topic is the directive. Whatever you see on the screen, everything is directive to the Angular. You create a component, it's a directive. If you see here, Angular's built-in directives to manage the forms, lists, styles, and what user sees and what user see. The different types of directives in Angular are as follows. Components are the directives. Attribute directives and the structural directives. So whatever components you have seen so far, if I ask you to, if you remember, I have said that presently you can understand directive is something TypeScript class. Sorry, component is something TypeScript class, which is having template and the selector, right? If you remember on the first day, I told you this definition, and at that time I told you you'll get more precise definition later on, right? So more precise definition of the component you'll get today. Component is used with a template. This type of directive is the most common directive type in an Angular. The directive with its own template is called as component. Directive with its own template is called as component. When you say directive with its own template is called as component, and rest of the two are not having their own template. They attribute directives placed on the other components or other elements. When you say attribute directives, they are placed on other components or other elements. Structural directives, the mechanics of the Angular which changes the page structure is called as structural directives. Whatever we have seen in the components, that is nothing but this component is. Now you get the precise definition of the Angular. If component. If someone asks you what is a component, your answer should be, what would be your answer? It's a directive with its own template. And then you can say, and it would be having a TypeScript class and the CSS selector. But you need to say this word, it's a directive. Many people get confused over here. They call it as components and directive has nothing to do with it. But technically at the core, components are the directives with the template. So what is the directives then? The things which are not, see, the directives are the classes that add the additional behavior to the elements in your Angular applications. So in a HTML, you don't have for loop. In a HTML, what I need to do? I need to write the for loop in a HTML. But that for loop is not available in HTML. Angular gives you that for loop. That is called as directive. Correct? Let's start with the attribute directives. ng class, built-in attribute directives, ng class, ng style, ng model. If you remember at the two-way binding, we have used something called as ng model. I told you at that time. We'll see that later on. So ng model is the attribute directive. Attribute directives listen to and modify the behavior of HTML elements. Attribute directives listen to and modify the behavior of HTML elements, attributes, properties, and the components. Okay, let us see what do you mean by ng class. Okay, now ng class. So here let's have section ng class. Here we can say we could apply the bootstrap also, no problem. Dot bgred background color chocolate. Now here you can apply, say hi h1, say welcome to Angular, and here you can say ng class is equals to, see, ng class is a built-in directive is equals to, we can say one boolean variable. Let's have a boolean variable. We can have a boolean variable, so is bg presently false. So is bg, then apply what, bgred, otherwise bg white. Where is the section? Welcome to Angular. Why there is no h1? ng class is bg. This is not allowed. Okay, that section is not available here. In the section there is the h1. Yeah, ng class, since it is a import over here, that is missing. New Angular. Yeah, Now if you make the variable value false, just if you want to apply the class with its name, ng class, if you want to apply, so this is the h1, and if you want to apply this bg red or bg white class on the basis of this is bg class, you will use the ng class directive. h1 welcome to Angular, ng style, ng what? Style. Now can you see here we can create the styles as an object. Okay, first let's import the ng style, ng style, and here let's create a object st border. You'll not get IntelliSense 1px solid, and multiple style properties you can add. Here we can say st. Here we can say what? st. If you go here, can you see border have been applied? That's what the ng style property is. You can create the styles as an object. This is a TypeScript object, and you can go on adding the styles here, and that you can apply over here. That's nothing but what the ng style is. Now ng model, you know what do you mean by ng model, right? Over here, yeah.
Actually, we can do all this using simple HTML, CSS file as well.
Correct.
So
What if you are going to get some styles from the server, right? And if you want to apply those styles as an object, on the button click I want to apply some style, and on the button click I want to remove some particular style. How do you do that? That is not possible, right?
Okay, I mean, if we do the same thing using the CSS file, that will be in a static form.
Correct. It would be the static way. So I want to do what I want to do.
At runtime, I have to take
this is the st object. It's a JavaScript object. You can add as number of as keys over here. There are some checkboxes, and if you tick the checkbox, particular style would be getting added to this object. How do you do that? That is not possible, right? And so you need something called as ng style, right? Got it or not?
Yeah.
Now ng model. What is ng model? So here in ng model, here we can say calc clc num1 0, num2 0, result rs 0. Correct? We need to import the forms module, because that ng module is available, forms module, ng module is available inside the forms module. So here you can do ng model. Is it correct syntax? Hello?
Yeah.
Syntax is correct or wrong? Yeah. clc dot num1, and here clc dot num2. So click. Here we can say handle operation 1, I will just call handle operation 2, handle operation 3, handle operation 4, right? And here we can say, so we don't need this num1 and num2. This is the older one, you may try with that. So if btn is exactly equals to 1, then rs is equals to clc dot num1 plus clc dot num2 clc dot, if this is 2, then minus, if this is 3, then multiply. Don't write else, else will not work, right? Can you tell me why else will not work? If you write else over here, it will not work. And here you can say clc dot rs, add 12 plus 34, 46, subtraction minus 22, division, multiplication. I think operations have been mismatched.
Division for division is 3.
4, 3, 1 in 10 into 3, multiplication is 30. ng model, this is called as attribute directive. Now you got to know what do you mean by ng model. Ng model, ng style, ng class, these are 3 built-in attribute directives. These are, yeah, ng model is a two-way binding. We have used the two-way binding. Now what is going to happen? Whenever you are going to type something, one event is going to get generated. That event is having value. That event is having input box value. So instead of template reference, this is a better approach. There is no template reference used over here, right? But this can be done in a template reference way also. How? So input type number, clc.num1. So technically, internally, what is going to happen? Event binding plus property binding. A key event is going to be captured. From the key event, you are going to get the actual value that is typed in. And that value is going to assign to be one variable, clc num1. Right? And clc num1 is given input to the box again. So event is captured from the same element, value is assigned to the variable, and that variable is given input to the, that variable has been given input to the your element.
So in this state, here CLC dot num that value is assigned, or I mean what is it equal
So
to?
event is going to be generated.
Yeah.
Event is going to be generated. That event value would be stored in the num1. So whatever you have typed, that would be getting stored in the num1. And the value of the num1 would be the input, means property binding to this input box. Getting my point? So whatever event is going to be generated, that event is going to be captured, and the input value is assigned to the num1. Input value is assigned to the num1, which is the variable in the TypeScript. And that variable would be used as a property binding. So same value is assigned to the input once again back. That's why it is a two-way binding. Event is also getting generated assigning to one variable, and that variable is the bind with the property value of the input box. There is one value property, right?
Right.
So to that value property, this variable CLC num1 is assigned as a property binding.
Okay. So that value property
Convert
this ng model.
ng model, correct. So whatever I said, the two things, event generation plus assigning the property to the value, is done by the ng model internally. And that's why it is a, so generating the event plus assigning back as a property. These two things has been done internally by the ng model. You don't need to do that thing separately.
And this ng model directive
Mhm.
is applicable to only for the
Input.
text control.
Input. Input. Yeah.
I mean, for here, here we are using a text box, right?
Mhm.
Or edit function, you can say. But how can it will be applicable for other input control like button?
For the button, it won't be. Button, there is only one click event. There is no value property over there. Whatever you are typing, that need not to be assigned back to the button's value, right? Because button's value is fixed. We are not going to change the button's value. Means as you are typing something in a text box, same value needs to be assigned to be button, or button label should be changed accordingly. That won't be the scenario. Button title would be fixed. For the checkboxes, this is very much useful. For radio buttons, for the range bars, we already have taken example with the range bar, right? Over there it is useful.
So we can say like this ng model is
Attribute directive.
yeah, and it is assigned to the value property of the input element.
Correct. And event binding also. There are two symbols over there, property binding plus event binding. So both the things are happening together. Yes. Both the things are happening together. That's why your work is getting reduced. And that's why this is fall under the directives. So this functionality is not available in the HTML. But Angular is giving on its own. A directive that is assigned as an attribute. A directive that is assigned as an attribute of other element. So it is called as attribute directive. And there are many attribute directives. Sorry, there are not many. Now we need to see the structural directive, but on Monday. Okay? We'll see structural directives.
This directory is internally what?
Means?
I mean, one class is defined for that.
We'll see that. You'll get to know what it is exactly. How exactly we can create our own custom directive also. The way we have created our own property and our own input. In the same way, we are going to create our own directive also. We'll see that later on. Before that, we will see the structural directives. What are the structural directives? And then we'll go to the customization. Fine? Yeah. I have pushed the code. Let's call it for a day. Yes. Thank you.